This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Pennsylvania introducing an author who was once a registered nurse with a happy family, but soon found herself fending off accusations of child abuse and ultimately losing her children. I am here with the investigative journalist, author, Maryanne. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm going to start off a little bit about yourself. I mean, you were formally educated at Gannon University. You became a nurse at St. Vincent Hospital. You worked in the ER. Share with me a little bit, first of all, what life looked like prior to the allegations from the family court system.
I was doing just fine. I was co-parenting for the last 10 years with the ex, and I actually have been a nurse for 23 years. And I had been working on a cardiac telemetry floor. Then I transferred to the ER, where I worked for about approximately 3 years. And what happened was his wife, who works in the courthouse, inserted herself into the co-parent relationship and the relationships I had with my children. And things started spiraling downward, especially when I remarried.
Wow. Can you give us kind of an overview of how this began when you realized something is amiss here?
Well, it was amiss when I had gotten my first OCY false indication. They call it the silver bullet tactic. And what they do is they use that to take the kids away from you. And then they come after you for child support.
Sounds like a nightmare. Silver bullet approach. As a parent myself, I can't imagine anything scarier. I mean, you've said the events in your story need to be heard. What was the specific breaking point or maybe moment of clarity that convinced you that your private struggle needed to be written about and become a public resource for others?
Well, I had represented myself as a pro se litigant for several years because the attorneys just didn't get it right, and they would torpedo the case, is what they do to a lot of parents. So when I had represented myself, I was trying to get 50-50 shared custody back, as we had been for 10 years. The judge wouldn't listen. I took it to the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. I did win 2 cases out of 3. And the second case I won was on the child support, which none of this should have happened to begin with. And I came upon writing this book because everyone kept asking what happened to the kids. Where are the kids? I don't know what, it was constant. So I just sat down and wrote a book.
That is quite brave of you to basically be vulnerable like that. You described the court system as a chain of bias, collusion, and perjury, really weighted down by corruption. For a reader or maybe a viewer out there who hasn't experienced this firsthand, can you kind of touch on these 3 elements, the bias, the collusion, and perjury?
The bias and collusion are somewhat intertwined because the opposing counsel was friends with the judge. They had worked in the DA's department for years, and this is how they function in these courthouses. They work together. They all play golf together. They're all playing in the same sandbox because they've all worked together. And it's the same story that I have heard from every parent, just in a different state.
I mean, we're talking about a big system to go up against. In your first book, you describe family court as a highly profitable business. I mean, you describe it as children being used as pawns to keep litigation active and money flowing, even incentivizing professionals to exploit parental intention rather than seeking a swift solution in the best interest of the child. I mean, this is quite a disturbing read for, I imagine, anyone.
Right, because what they do within the court system is they inflict child psychological abuse onto the child by creating conflict and disrupting co-parenting, as it had been, at least in my case, for 10 years. So they would do this by allowing continuances, conflicts of interest with the wife working in the courthouse. They didn't seem to care.
Your book, this first book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough. I mean, it really highlights unproven observations of CPS workers that are treated as really scientific conclusions during trials. How can an alienated parent who finds themselves accused by such reports without any actual evidence, how can they fight back? And is documenting vital in providing some of your own evidence?
As a parent, I found that whatever evidence you have, it doesn't matter. The judge will take whatever OCY says and they will run with it. And they perjure themselves on the stand. I've seen it with my own eyes. They come into your home and just treat you like garbage.
I mean, that is not the answer I expected to hear. In most courts, you're trying to document your evidence. You're basically telling me it really didn't even help. In
No,
this first book, I mean, one of the most moving parts of your story is your time in a holding cell, essentially a real life debtor's prison, where you use the acoustics of the cement walls to sing music, as I understand. Did finding beauty and humor in such a dark environment kind of strengthen your resolve to indict the system, would you say?
it was something, like I said, that none of this should have ever happened. And you have to make the best out of a bad situation. And I met people in there. I was only in jail for 5 days for non-support because the child support judge would not listen to any of the evidence I was trying to present.
After sharing your book with the world, you really found that there were others just like you. In Raised by These Wolves, you share true stories from victims featured on your podcast, Slam the Gavel. Has documenting these all too common experiences helped shift the narrative from individual tragedies to a collective indictment of the family court system, would you say?
Right. The collection of stories from these parents is very important to show how their relationships evolved and how they ended up in court and how the outcome is the same for all these parents, that there is no justice or recourse for anyone in the family court system.
That is
And it,
terrifying. I mean,
right.
in volume 2, you suggest that child trafficking and corruption within the court system and CPS is no longer a rare occurrence, but shockingly has become the standard operation. What has been the feedback from those who have read your books? I mean, I would hope anyone would want to kind of dismantle this legal machine.
Yeah, I do get feedback. I have Slam the Gavel podcast, and I have interviewed a lot of these people that are in the book, and they would like to see justice. And the only way they can see it is going on Slam the Gavel podcast because they said no other media outlets will listen to them.
That is something, and very sad. We have normalized such a systematic abuse out there. I mean, this corruption is legal human trafficking fueled by taxpayer dollars, really, to transition a child from a family member to a monetary pawn within the court. Because justice is absent, like you say, in the courtroom, why should families take their cases to the court of public opinion to expose the truth, would you say?
Because they have reached the breaking point where they cannot trust the attorneys anymore. They have fired their attorneys. They have now begun to represent themselves pro se, and they want to expose the story because it's not being heard in the courtroom, along with their evidence.
That has to be something to witness for you. You've now heard from other people who have done the same. Despite not being a lawyer, you have won 2 cases in Superior Court. I mean, really boasting a record that exceeds many legal professionals. What is the single takeaway from your book that empowers a pro se parent to be more resilient and ultimately successful in the midst of a system that lacks oversight?
Well, when I wrote this book, I wanted it to be a handbook for parents going through the system. And there are poems within it, there's takeaways in it so people can learn from it and to help build them up and not bring them down. And despite all of this causing myself to have a heart attack, I want parents to walk away with knowing that they should also practice self-care.
Just reading the book, I would imagine almost makes people have a heart attack. I mean, as a parent, that's just frightening to me, for me to understand anything like that. You've gone beyond your story, beyond your book, to helping others conquer their fears and the pain caused by parental alienation. Your philosophy emphasizes that failing will happen, but can that perseverance lead to victory? And what have you witnessed?
Well, sometimes there are small victories, at least in my case. Parents are, I don't know even how to answer that because it's such a broad question. There are
Yes.
successes and sometimes there aren't.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's more failings than you see success, obviously, and that's the frustration of it. But I mean, obviously, you are a resource for people out there to be able to share their story and understand. I understand there was a recent signing of a film TV rights contract. Is your story moving toward a global audience at this time, and or what are you hoping for?
Oh, I did a movie trailer with director Adam Worth. He's a five-time Emmy Award-winning director. So we do have a trailer. I've got a pitch deck, and I'm looking for a producer that would like to work with me to get this out there, not just my story, but it could evolve into other stories.
I think that's important. I mean, Maryanne, your work exposes issues here in the United States, but corruption is occurring around the world. As you empower readers with knowledge to stop what you call the crime of the century, is this now your life's mission?
Apparently now it is because sometimes advocacy chooses you whether you like it or not. So I fell into this because this podcast reaches so many in England, Ireland, all over. It needs to be heard because this is a global problem that I don't know how they're going to fix it or solve it. But the more parents that speak out and the stories that are heard, people are listening.
People are definitely listening. I'm glad to share your story out there with my audience. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen. What you're going to see is her website. On the website, you find all the books that we have touched on, even a collection of her poetry, which is Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth from her first book. You can find her blog and her Slam the Gavel podcast. Many, many ways that you can learn more by signing petitions to get involved. Once again, that is Dismantling Family Court Corruption. Why taking the kids was not enough. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.